Music theory with Microsoft Excel. Modes formula, adding color. Get ready and some coffee because you ain't never seen rockin' unless you excel at rockin', for which Microsoft Excel is a requirement. In Excel, if you don't have access to this workbook, that's okay because you could just follow along. But if you do have access, 3 tabs down below, including the fretboard tab, which has a simulated fretboard. We will refer to the example tab having, in essence, the answer key. The blank tab, where we started with a blank worksheet, but that happened in a prior course or section. This time, we're going to be adding the color factor, the color component to our worksheet. Let's go to the fretboard tab to get a reminder of our objective, that being to maximize the use of color to better be able to understand music theory in general and to better be able to navigate our colored fretboard here more specifically. What did you just say? Proper nomenclature. Fretboard of color. Fretboard of color. I'm sorry. Fretboard of color. Don't dox me. Shut up. Okay, here we go. Fretboard of color. Remembering that the beautiful fretboard of color here has the low or heavy E string, the one closest to the ceiling on top. We're currently looking at the collection of notes around the C major, although we're going to have the same collection of notes and the same color scheme for all of the 7 related modes, which is what we're going to focus in on a bit more this time, noting our color system is not just randomly assigned. We have an absolute color system for all of the notes that has been mapped on by mapping the color wheel onto the pitch wheel, maximizing the distance between all of the colors. So that's great. And when we use this system, that means that, for example, the color is going to be tied to this C note. So this green will always be the C note, whether we're looking at it as the Ionian node or if we're looking at it in another scale. This F will always be this blue. This A will always be basically this color of red. That's great, but sometimes we might want to tie the color scheme to the nodes, which we've been calling like the continents in prior presentations. Why would we want to do that? Because when we change the collection of notes, then it's going to move up in proportion. So in other words, if I change the collection of notes, I know this is very colorful, it's almost overwhelming over here. If I go to a 6, then we're going to say, okay, now the D, now we're around the collection of notes around the D, and the A over here still has that same red color. So that's great from an absolute note perspective, but oftentimes I want to be looking at the related notes. So what we can do then is go back to this color scheme and say, I want to have this same color scheme, but I want to tie it out to the modes so that when I move it up, the relative positions will move up. What I've done here is to tie that out to these conditional formatting cells. So they look the same right now, but if I pull this over here, we get the same color scheme. But then when I change it, this whole shape will move up. So now I'm going to change it to a 6, and you can see these color schemes are different between these two now. And so now it has basically moved up this way. So those are the 2 ways that we can primarily use our color schemes. Have an absolute color scheme for all of the, in essence, the continents, and you can start to associate that color with the continents when you're looking at them from that perspective, meaning like the Lydian mode, the Ionian mode, the Dorian mode will have the same color scheme. Or we have a color scheme if we're looking at the colors in terms of each note. So in that case, if I pull this one back and I go by notes, this will be the color scheme for each of the notes. So now you can see the A is now red again, even though we're around the D Ionian. Okay. So let's go on over to our blank worksheet and think a little bit more intensely about how all these modes kind of work together. So just to get a general visualization of this, remember that we're working in collections of notes of 7 collection of notes. We have 12 notes total. So if I rebuild what we've done over here, and then I'm going to add color to it. So the example tab shows you what I'm going to do. I'm going to take what we've done and add the color to it so that we can compare and contrast not only all of the different collections of notes, but also look at them by different modal centers. So that's going to be our worksheet here. And so if I go back on over here, what we've done in the past is we numbered 1 through 12, and then we went up there 2 times so we can repeat it, kind of like if it's going in a circle. We gave the letters, remembering that we're going to show the sharps and flats as a lowercase. So this represents an A sharp or a B flat. And then I combined them together so that now we have the letter and the number. So then we looked at the modes. We listed out the modes: Ionian, Dorian, Phrygian, Lydian, Mixolydian, Aeolian, Locrian. How do we get those modes? We typically base them off of the major scale. So we typically think of the Ionian first. Why? Because in Western music, everything kind of rotates around, or we built it primarily off of the Ionian. Remember that the Ionian, it's more like a fractal picture. They're all related. The Ionian, from a fractal perspective, from a picture perspective, we can derive the Ionian from the Dorian just as easily that I can derive the Dorian from the Ionian. There's nothing actually special, in other words, about the Ionian other than its historical context and the fact that we just prefer it. From mathematically, they're all tied together the same. I can derive each of them from the other. But we use the Ionian as the key. We typically apply a Roman numeral system to it as well. Why? Because the Roman numerals allow us to have a capital and a lowercase. And that means that from a practical standpoint, when I play music, we usually would like to know if I make a major chord or a minor chord, and I can use the capitals and lowercase to say that the 1, 4, 5 being capital will be uppercase, will be major. The 2, 3, and 6 will be minor, and that little dot is what I'm going to use for a diminished. It's going to be a diminished seventh. Now, the problem with this numbering system is that when you combine it to also be using the modes, they renumber the system. If I want to work in the Dorian, it becomes the 1, which, why would we do that? That doesn't make any sense, really. That's why the Nashville number system came about, because it's easier to think of it as the 2, because I already know the 2 is a minor chord. I build a minor chord off it. So keeping that in mind, we're going to give the modes an abbreviation as well. Ionian, Dorian is a D, Phrygian's a P, Lydian, I'm going to make it a Y instead of an L, because an L looks like a 1 a lot of times. Mixolydian, we didn't want an M because it looks like major or minor, so we picked an X for Mixolydian. Aeolian's an A, Locrian's an N, so we don't have the L again, and the N is backwards because Locrian is crazy, so that's how I can remember it. So we have the formula: whole, whole, half, whole, 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 half for the major scale, which in terms of steps would be whole, whole, half, whole, 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 half. Okay, so then in our worksheet over here, we have the first part of our worksheet for the Ionian mode, first looking in the key that we usually work in, that being the 4th note, or around the C. So the collection of notes around the key of C using this formula. Now the scale positions, we choose 7 notes. We usually number them 1 through 7. And so that's going to be the formula. It's going to be whole, whole, half. Our Roman numerals, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, but major and minor being indicated by the capital for the major, lowercase for the minor. And then the notes is this formula. We're going to be taking, the 4 up top, and then we're going to add to it the formula of the 2. So it's a little complicated on the formula, because if it goes above 12, we're going to keep it within the same range. I'm not going to go up above the octave, or I'm going to imagine it repeating like in a circular format. So then if I pull that into the actual notes, we get the notes of a C, which is a 4, a D, an E, an F, a G, an A, and a B, of course. So then I could do the same thing. This time, however, I want to look at all of the major keys so I can see them kind of side by side. So I'm going to say, let's do it with an A, right? So if I look at an A, start at a 1, then I get an A, B, and then a C sharp, a D, E, F sharp, and G sharp. If I do it with a B, we start with a B here, B, C sharp, D, D sharp, or sorry, E, F sharp, G, and so on. And now I can put these two side by side. So I can also then map this out down here and say, what if I went through the whole thing with a 6 starting from the D? What if I look at everything from the Dorian formula? This Dorian formula is pulling from here. I'm just starting the formula from the second point. So we're going to start from the second point, and that's going to be our formula. And if I look at the related Dorian to the key of C up top, if it would be 4 to 6, I'm going to get the same collection of notes. D, E, F, G, A, B, C. No sharps or flats, but now I'm in the Dorian. And then I could do the Phrygian, which would be an 8 if I'm in the key of C. That's what this first column is doing. And I get the same collection of notes, but now I'm thinking of Phrygian as the center point. Same collection of notes for the Lydian, but now I'm thinking of the 9 or the F as the center point. Mixolydian. Now I'm just thinking of the G. And then the Aeolian, which is the minor scale. Now the A is the center point. And then finally the Locrian, where the B is the center point. So all of these modes, the related modes, are just basically saying I'm going to start from a different point, or that's going to be my tonic in essence from a practical standpoint. You're just changing in essence the tonic. And then each of these, I'm also going to break it out this way. What if I went from A 1 to 12, A to G sharp for each of the mode types? So I'm going to look at all modes that are in each of the keys, so that I can look at them up and down. Like here's an A up here major, and this is the complement mode, having the same starting point, an A, but it's not going to have the same collection of notes. These are the two ways that you often will move between the modes. So you have modes that are the same, meaning like here you have the same collection of notes from here to here, a D Dorian and a C major. So all I'm doing here is making the focal point different using all the same notes. Or the other common thing to do is, well, here I'm in A major. What if I kept the tonic the same? So I'm pivoting. I'm really focusing in on that A a lot, and then I change around that A to a minor. That's kind of a subtle change, right? So that's another way that you can not totally jar the person's ear by moving from one key to another key, because now you're kind of pivoting around the root note. And so we could do the same thing for a B and then a C, and and so on and so forth. So we'll map all of this out, and then I can hide some cells to see these side by side. So let's add the color, and we'll analyze it a little bit more here. So what I'm going to do is add color. So what I'm going to do is take, in essence, this formatting and add it in. So what I'm going to copy this. Let's copy this and put it on like another worksheet. And if you don't have this, you could ask like a ChatGPT to give you the colors. We talked about that in prior presentations, but I'm just going to kind of cheat a little bit and just say we're just going to pull this over here, and I'll make that large. And so I want to just add color to this one. It needs color. Okay. All right. And why is that there? Go away. Go away. All right. So let's go back on over here. So now we're gonna say that I need to add color. So I'm gonna remove the conditional formatting for now. So I've got, or I'm just going to make this all like I have formatting. Let's make it all like blue up top. I'm going to make this just the standard blue, and then this is all green, let's say. So we have two sets of our color system. And then what I want to do is just make A through G these colors. I just want to add these colors to them. So let's do that first. But I also want to add these shapes. Let's do that too. So how can I add those shapes? Let's go ahead and insert right here. Right click and insert. And I'm just going to grab these shapes. And this is kind of like another way to see the evens and odds. And that helps to kind of visualize patterns sometimes. So I think that is a cool idea. I like it. I stole it from somebody who was thinking that. I wish I would give them their name. I'm not good at remembering names, so I'm sorry. Don't cancel me. I'm gonna copy that. That's okay. No one cares. If I recommend them or not. Anyways, all right. So I'll probably do more harm than good if I could remember the name anyway. So whatever. Anyway, so let's go ahead and double click here, and we're gonna say and pick up that dot. So now we've got the dot on the odd numbers. So I've got the A has a dot, and then a square, dot, square, even, and odd. So I find that a lot of people don't use numbers at all, but I'm finding more and more that idea of even and odd is useful to look at, because it's kind of like computer coding. Everything's being thought of as on and off, or plus or minus, up or down, right? From a sales standpoint, you've got the little things that point up or point down or something, right? So it seems like that is a way to see it. So I think that's useful to see even and odd as a pattern, and it's a little bit more clear with a circle and a square, or filled in or not filled in, to start to visualize your pattern in a different way of like the whole half pattern we have here. So anyways, so there's that. And then let's just color format these. So I'm gonna color format these. I'm gonna select the whole thing because I want to do conditional formatting color with these colors. So I'm gonna select that, and I'm gonna copy this one. And this is going to be a little bit tedious. We're just going to conditional format this thing. And so I wish they had an easier way to do this, but I want to conditional format that, and then go custom formatting and fill the color, more colors. And then right there's the color we want, FF0000. And there we go. It's now a cell of color. It's a beautiful cell of color now. And so then we're gonna say this will be here. Okay, we're gonna make this orange. So make it orange. All right, ba-boom. There it is. Okay, and then we're gonna do the yellow and do for that one. So we'll go do make it yeller. And then maybe I should fast forward this one a bit. It's a little tedious. I know it's a little tedious, but it's like it's important to do this. Look at all the clicks. I mean, are you telling me, Excel, that this is the best? I swear, some designer needs to get on this. Look at all the clicks I'm doing. Google's gonna beat you with their sheets if you. This is ridiculous. It's almost like you don't like colors. You're against the colors. I see what's happening. Look how hard I have to work to make my cells of color. It's not. This is like I don't have to click this many times. Anyway, I feel like there should be an easier way to do it. That's all I'm trying to say. There should be an easier. It shouldn't be so tedious. But, you know, it is what it is. Gotta put in the work. You gotta put in the work. All right? That's why. Stop whining. I'm not whining. I'm suggesting that there should be a better. I'm trying to recommend. No, you need to put in the work. That's your problem. No, I'm putting in the work, but I'm just saying that this cannot be. Okay, I've had enough of you. All right, we're gonna almost there. Almost there. Almost there. All right, hot pink. This is where it's the color wheel's bending back around here to the start of the circle. And then it gets to the red. Magenta. Magenta, okay? Red. Red. That is not red. Are you blind? It's magenta, I think. I don't know. Crying out loud. All right. So there we have it. Okay, let's maximize this thing. Okay, so now let's see if we can apply this color formatting to all of our 7-note collections, and we'll kind of discuss it as we do. So I'm going to hide this for now. We don't need this. Get this out of here. Right click and hide that. So now we've got the Ionian mode. So I'm just going to, now the beauty of this is that now I've got all of them, and they're conditional formatted, so I can just grab any of them and conditional format this thing like this, and then go boom. And there we've got it. So now we've got our collection of colors, which are permanently now tied to the notes. And I can compare that then to, if I go down, this is the C. So here's all the related. These are going to be all the same colors, right? So here's the Ionian around the collection of notes of the key of C major, and then here's the same collection of notes for the related D Dorian. So notice if someone says that they're playing in D Dorian, it would be nice if they would say, hey, look, we're using the collection of notes around the key of C major, focusing in on the 2 note, which is the Dorian, right? I think that would be actually the more proper way to say it. Because otherwise, what do you have to do? You usually memorize the collection of 7 notes in the major key, because that's just Western convention. And if someone says they're playing in D Dorian and you're not totally familiar with it, you're going to have to say, okay, what's the related major key? Because then it'll be easier for me to visualize the shape on the fretboard, right? But you can see all the colors are the same, right? You go green to green, blue, pink. I'm probably not. I wish I do need to get better with the color terminology. I'm serious. I'm not even joking here. It'd be good if I want distinct names for the colors. Because here's green, but this is kind of like green blue, and this is this is blue but not dark blue, and then like navy blue, I would think, pink, and then back to red, right? And then when I go to the Phrygian, let's do the Phrygian, and I just format paint this bad doggy down here. So now we're starting on the 8, which is the related Phrygian. So you're going to get the same colors, but now you're starting on the blue. So if I started on the C down here, it would be the green to the blue, to the dark blue, to the pink, to the red, to the yellow. Now remember that our number system in the Roman numerals, this is what normally happens is they're going to number this a 1 through 7 in the Phrygian. That's the problem. That's where the Nashville number system is actually, in my opinion, and I think it's objectively true, it's more sophisticated, even though they talk about it like it's a hack. No, we should be using the same number, calling this a Roman numeral 3, right? We have the same collection of notes around the Ionian node of the key of C, but the tonic is the Roman numeral 3, or the 3, right? We're playing around the 3. Why is that better? Because I don't have to rememorize all of the relative positions and the related Roman numerals for them every time I switch the related notes. It just makes sense. Why don't we do that? Again, it's only a convention, I believe, for the writing of music, the way it basically came, the way the writing of music came about, and the piano being the major influence of it. But even for the piano, this would be a better system, right? But in any case, we have, if you start on the Lydian, now here's the same colors, green, but the green is now down here. Green, green, blue, dark blue, pink, red, and then yellow. And then if I go down to the Mixolydian, we have the same colors, but the green now is down here, right? Because now the pink is up top. So same colors, and then if I go down to the Aeolian, then we have the same colors, but now the green is the 4. So green, green, blue, blue, pink, red, yellow. And then if we go down to the Locrian, crazy Locrian, then we've got the C's here. Boom, 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 boom. Okay, what if I go across this way? Let's do a different collection of notes. Now we're going to look at all of our notes, that collections. And remember, how many collections of notes do we have? Well, there's 12 notes. Therefore, we have 12 collections of 7 notes. Within each of those 7 note collections, we can make any of those 7 notes the tonic, which we call a different scale. So you could think of it, how many kind of scales or modes do we have? 12 collections of notes times 7. But we really, again, only have 12 collections of notes. All we're doing with these times 7 or modes is making the tonic different, right? We're just starting at a different, we're making the centerpiece of that collection of notes one or a different note or different color in our case now of all of them, right? So let's say if I take this same thing and I say I'm going to paste it on here. Now we're starting with the A. So we're starting on A, the collection of notes around A major. And so we go from the red to the yellow, which is a B. But then we have this color, which we didn't have before. It's close. You're going to say, hey, look, I can't really tell the difference between these colors. I know you're going to have to work with it, but you can tell the difference, right? This is going to be a different color. I want to get better at getting my names for those colors. I think this one, by the way, let's try to see if I can do that. The official naming, let me add the names over here. So we should have, terminology is important. Words matter. Words matter. It's just usually people, when they say that, then they manipulate you with weird words. But I'm not manipulating. I'm actually going to make words that are clear because they need to be clear, scientifically distinguishable, definition-oriented words. Red, orange. So this one is green, whereas this one is clearly yellow-green. And this one is spring green, okay? Or green blue, maybe. So there's clearly a distinction, all right? So this is spring green or green blue, and this is going to be sky blue versus this just blue or dark blue. I'm going to call it navy blue, I think is appropriate. Violet, and then this is the rose color. Okay, then. So we have 2 colors that are basically different on those 2. Now, if I go down, we're still going to have the A, but this time we're pivoting around the A. I'm not looking at the related A the way we did before. I'm not looking at the related, like the D related to the C. Instead, I'm pivoting around the A. So now we're going to keep the tonic the same, but I'm switching the notes now from Ionian to Dorian. So this is the other way that we make the switch, meaning we don't have the same collection of notes, even though we do have the same tonic. What's different? Well, we've got an A, we've got a yellow, we've got a green, we've got the D, this green, we've got this blue, we've got this one, and then this one's different. I see it now. That one's magenta. We didn't have a magenta before. So see how you could possibly more easily see just the colors, and maybe that color will pop out as a difference more than the note. And from someone that works in Excel a lot with spreadsheets, I was skeptical about this because, you know, there's kind of like a thing where you're like, colors are for wussies, man. It should just be a black and white spreadsheet. But you have to, I mean, if the colors work, man, you need, so look at that. Look at it, just pops out, that orange. So now we have the same thing. We're pivoting around the A, but now we're doing an A Phrygian. What's different? Now we have an orange. It's just orange red. I think we could just call it orange because that's the only one we have. So I'll just call it orange. And so that's cool. And then we've got like this one down here is blue here instead of the purple. Okay, and then if I color code this one down here, we're going to pivot around the A going from Phrygian to Lydian. So now we've got the red, yellow, this green, which is, what is that green? That's normal green. That's just normal green. And then we've got, I think that's sky blue. That is cayenne. Cayenne I thought was hot. Aren't there cayenne peppers? Cayenne, really? That doesn't, I can't associate that. Why would it be cayenne? If we go to the Mixolydian, we've got the red, yellow, that's the green. That's the green, I'm going to call it green blue. And then we've got the, I think that's sky blue. And then purple. Do we just call it purple? They want to call it violet. I think purple is fine. No, that is because that's different than this purple. No, that's the only purple we have. Violet. It's just purple. And then that is magenta. Okay. So I'm getting better at this myself. So now we're going to go Aeolian. So now we have the Aeolian yellow. That's going to be the green, but that's not normal green. That is green yellow, yellow green. And then we've got the green blue, I think, and then the sky blue, dark blue or navy blue, and that's the magenta again. And then we'll paste this one down here for the Locrian. Boom. So that's the idea. Let's paste it across here. So now I could keep going across this way. So if I go this way, I'm going from the collection of 7 notes around the A major. And we usually think about the collection of notes around the major. So this is A sharp. So now this is the collection of notes that starts from the one after the color after red, which is going to be orange. And then we're going to move through our collection of notes here. But there's 7 note collection. So it doesn't, you're not seeing an exact, the shape doesn't, because this isn't 12 notes that we're rotating through. We're applying this formula, whole, half, whole, half to the collection of 12 notes to pick up our 7 note collections starting on each one of the 12 notes. Let's go with this one. So now we've got the collection of notes for the B. And then we're going to say, then we're going to go this way and say, boom. Now we have the one collection of notes around the C. Okay, something got out of whack with this formula right here because it's pulling from that top one. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to copy this one down here, which looks like it's correct. I don't want to get, and I'm going to copy this 6, and I'm going to put it there. I might have fixed that for you, so it doesn't do that. I'm going to paste it formulas only, because this should be good. And I think this is doing the same thing. Yeah, so I'm going to paste this all the way across, and that needs to be, hopefully I get the formulas correct. And I'm going to paste this, boom, and paste it here, boom, and hopefully, and then paste it here, boom, boom. So if I double click here, it's pulling the proper formula. All right, this is pulling the proper formula. I think that's right. So let's copy this and do it here, and then do it here, formulas, and then do it here. Okay, I think hopefully that's right. I'm going to pull this over, format paint this here. So now we're on the C sharp. So we've got 2, so 5, 6, 7 whole step, 9 whole step, 10 half step, 12 whole step, 12, 1, 2 whole step, 12, 2, 3, 4 whole step. Okay, so I think that's right. Let's paint that here. So now we go C sharp to D. So now we've got 6 whole step, half step, whole step, 3 whole step. Okay, let's paint this to here. Hopefully that's right. We've got whole step, half step, whole step, whole step. And then we'll paint this to here. So we've got whole step, half step, whole step, whole step. Paint this to here. Okay, ba-boom. And paint this here. And then we'll paint this here. And paint this here. Where we've got whole step, half step, whole step, whole step, whole step. Okay. So then we can do the same thing down here. So I'm just going to paint this across. Now we're in the Dorian. And we go from the A Dorian to A sharp Dorian. So now we can see, hopefully these colors set, hopefully I got my form. I'm like skeptical of my formulas now. Did you do it right? I'm going to blame my assistant. I think my assistant must have messed up my worksheet after I had it all fixed up before when they were preparing for my presentation time. So, but that's okay because I fixed it now. They're stupid. Just kidding. I don't have an assistant. No one, I can't afford an assistant. No one would want to work around here. Why would, that's only, I'm trying to build up my reputation. Why would I be working? Let's paste this across. All right, we're doing the same thing this way. All right. I'm trying to be able to find a job somewhere, for crying out loud. Okay. That's okay. Let's paste this across. All right. Here we go, yo. Here we go, yo. And this is a bit tedious of a task, but that's how the color coding works. If you want beautiful cells of color, they don't just, you've got to put in the work. But it's worth it. Okay? And then we'll paste this down here. All right. Almost there. On the Mixolydian color sets, mapping all the collections of color. For the Mixolydian. There must be a better way to do, no, this is the most efficient way to do it. I've done this before. Don't act like you think there's a better, I know the best way to do it. I know what I'm doing, Wyatt. I know what I'm doing. All right, then we're gonna go to the Aeolian. All right, paste it down to the Aeolian. All right, and so here's all the color sets for the Aeolian. Again, it looks like we have all these different sets of color, but again, the sets of color, there's only 12 of them, but we're just changing the center point. So that means I can use the same color set for all 7 modes of each of the 12 7-note collections. I'm just going to change which color, which note, which is associated with a color, is the focal point, the tonic, the center. All right, let's paste this one across. All right. Boom, boom. Okay. And all right. So then on a worksheet like this, we can also hide columns. So if I go up top and I want to see these side by side, maybe I don't want all these columns between it. Maybe I hide this one, right? I hide this, and I hide this, and I can see all of my colors kind of for the different starting points. Side by side, you start to see patterns. It starts to look like some kind of political flag for the Democratic Party or something. This is propaganda. You're making a propaganda Excel sheet. No, I'm not. I'm not. This is You're indoctrinating. I'm not indoctrinating. This is legitimately useful. This is the proper use to see the patterns of the colors. There's no indoctrination happening here. This is like, look at it. It's a flag. It's a flag. No. No. Okay. It's a flag. So now we can compare. We can look for the patterns, right? We can look for the patterns. All right, let's unhide that, and so that looks good. We'll continue this with some of our other worksheets, adding the color component. And like I say, I think my idea is that right-click, unhide. The more different ways you can see the patterns, the better you're going to understand all the patterns. You're building more neural connections. So I think it's actually good that we built everything out, without the color scheme component, and now we're adding it. So again, you can kind of go back into it and look at it from one thing to another. Look at it just by notes. Look at it by number. I think you should add the number and the notes because math isn't simple adding and subtraction. And then try to look at it from pluses and minuses. Try to look at it from even and odd patterns. Right, and then of course try to look at it from color with an absolute color association scheme, or possibly then by color having a color tied not to the notes, but rather to the modes. And we'll keep on constructing more worksheets for that, including our final project will be this entire worksheet to make this beautiful fretboard of color and all the stuff that goes into that, which is actually quite a project. It's quite a project, I must say. Anyway.